So before I start with the presentation itself, want to quickly share with you that both Professor Malati Sriram and I come to this forum with the spirit of being explorers. We believe that today we are in a crisis situation, which all of you will very much agree. We are all trying to find ways in which to sustain ourselves amidst this crisis. So we come to this forum with the spirit of being explorers who are trying to discover the terrain and understand more about what's happening around us. We're going to share what experiences we have had this far and also look forward to your questions, and hopefully we should be able to answer the same. So I'll share the presentation and we will get started. So I hope all of you can see the presentation.
Yes, you can make it in presentation mode.
Yeah, I'm just switching. I hope it's visible now.
Perfect.
Okay. I hope the rest of you can see it as well.
I suppose so.
Okay.
Yes, Neetu.
Malati, you can. Sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so like I said before, this particular session, Professor Malti and I are going to be talking about online education in COVID times. What are the opportunities and challenges that present themselves, and how are we trying to cope with the same? So the agenda is roughly going to be as follows. We are talking of COVID-19 and the impact it has had on education, and how we've all moved to online education as being a solution. We're looking at the opportunities that have presented themselves to us. We're also looking at the challenges and how to surmount them. We also quickly take a look at the way forward and what the future may hold for us. So to begin with, we all are aware that COVID-19 as a pandemic has impacted all of our lives. In particular, here we are discussing the impact it has had on education. So we are all aware that sometime in early March, we had a complete closure of schools and colleges worldwide. So we found that as per research, we have nearly 1.5 billion children across 188 countries who are out of school because of this pandemic, and that's roughly 90% of the world's student population. So all of us were in this crisis together and still are in this crisis together. And we are all well aware that every crisis situation presents an opportunity to us. So what we have tried to do is make use of this crisis and try and see what opportunities it presents to us. Like Albert Einstein said, in the midst of every crisis lies great opportunity. So what did we all do? Very quickly, within a week to 10 days, almost all institutions across the world, schools, K-12, universities, everybody moved to online education because the goal was that learning should never stop. The ultimate objective is, throughout this pandemic, with all the chaos that's happening around us, the depressing news that's coming in from various quarters, one thing to remain sane is to keep learning going. It'll at least give us a semblance of normalcy. So to keep or to achieve this particular goal of never stop learning, everyone moved to online education. What we need to remember here is that this was not a planned decision. This is a crisis situation, like I said before, and we said, okay, what best way to keep learning going? Let's move to online education. So as all of us understand, online education is the use of technology, use of internet to educate people. So we've all moved to online education, but today we are faced with a lot of challenges because, as I said before, this was not something we had planned or prepared very well for. This came suddenly, it hit us, and we said, okay, how best to cope with the current situation? We moved to online education. Now here, this particular opportunity presents a lot of different challenges. In particular, we find that both the students and the teachers are lost in many ways because we are trying to see how best to make use of technology to recreate what we were doing in the classroom. So if I were to say, most of us would agree we have jumped into the ocean. We have tried to stay afloat with what knowledge we've had, and now we are trying to see how best to swim across. So here we are not looking at perfection, but we are trying to see how our experience can help shape a better way of doing things for the future. The most important aspect here that we need to look at is, while we moved to online learning, there are a lot of aspects of classroom learning which will be difficult to create online. So I was recently reading an article from the New York Times where they've conducted a survey and checked with students what they miss about school. And they came up with a lot of facts like the interaction with the teacher, the interaction with our friends, the classes itself lent so much of support to us. Now, all of this is somehow missing in online learning is what they reported, and they felt that online learning was not interesting. Now, I must hasten to add that when they say online learning is not very interesting, we're looking at the model where we've just tried to replicate how we were teaching in class online, which is most of the time just the use of a video conferencing tool to relay the session to the homes of students wherever they may be. But there are a lot of other aspects that come into play here, and we're going to discuss the same. My colleague, Professor Malti Sriram, will now talk about the opportunities that present themselves during this crisis situation, and I will come back in a while to talk about challenges. Over to you, Malti.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Neetu. Every situation which is, dire straits actually presents us with some opportunities. Of course, as people who can utilize this opportunity to the best of our ability, that is where I would say we will be successful. Before I go on to the opportunities which we feel like Neetu said, we are explorers, right? So we look at these as opportunities. Before I list down those, let me talk about what are the different educational levels that we talk about, or the classes that we talk about, right? When I say class, I'm not talking of class 1, 2, 3. I'm talking about the different categories here. So here we are talking of university level education, which could be a UG or a PG. We are talking of students who are at the school level. It may be the nursery, the high school, the +2. Basically both these, the high school and the +2, actually preparing for the board exams and other kind of assessments, the competitive exams after the +2. The third category would be those students who are looking at higher education. Maybe when I say higher education, specifically those who are looking at higher education abroad in the universities of higher learning which are outside of India. The fourth one I would say are those who are in the juncture of jumping from a PG to a post, maybe a doctoral thing, or maybe a UG to a PG where they are taking certain other competitive exams such as the NEET or the CAT. So here we are talking of these different levels of education, which actually in these times, it is a stress test for all of us. It's not only the teachers, it's also the students who are facing this. Along with this, it is the management and the infrastructure. The government also, like Satish sir was mentioning, how are we going to, let us say, the ocean, if not expertise, if not afloat, how are we going to learn to swim? So that is where we are looking at opportunities, right? So let me present you the first opportunity which we foresee as one of the things that as teachers that we can do. So the first thing is continued learning. Like most of us, even Mr. Satish, when he was talking about it, how do we not let the learning stop? In fact, Dr. Neetu also mentioned that everybody quickly jumped on, or leapfrog, I should say, to existing online tool or a learning management system which helped the schools or the other universities to keep the teaching afloat. And I would say salute to teachers, because at one point in time, I would say if we are teachers who already are a little aware of the various platforms that we can use for teaching, imagine the teachers who are at the high school level or at the nursery level or at the primary level, who needed to quickly adapt to these platforms and also make a success out of it. So online teaching, just to summarize this continued learning in terms of opportunity which the technology platforms have provided, let us say online teaching is no longer an option, right? And I just take a few words from what Satish sir was talking about. Maybe 40% is what is going to be online and 60% is what is going to be face to face. Let me reverse that and say 60% would be actually online, and maybe 40% would be something which can be done in the classroom mode. So these are certain, I would say, different levels of teaching or learning, I would say, areas or classifications that we are talking of, as in the students who are there. So this actually is an opportunity in terms of providing those learning platforms, creating those lessons so that the learners or the students do not lose out on learning. So I would say that is an opportunity where continued learning can be done using these online teaching methods or platforms, and of course platforms. So the second point that I would like to emphasize here is how teachers are actually self-motivated, I should say. With the self-motivation that they have come up with innovating teaching methods with the technology that is at their disposal. So I would say something like, even though the whole idea of having online classes was a knee-jerk reaction in the beginning, and somehow teachers were, pushed into this, I would say they have risen to the occasion. And they have taken this, at least at this point in time, I should say, they've taken this like fish to water, and somewhere they have been able to deliver. Of course, the proof of the pudding is eating it. So we still are out there checking out whether this has really worked or not. There are so many, I would say, hits and misses, trials and errors that we still are trying to grapple. But yes, teachers are the key, I should say, not just in these primary education or in the high school education, but throughout, from the nursery to the higher education. We are talking of teachers being the pivot for the online education to happen. Of course, the technology has greatly helped. But then the teachers also require a lot of support in terms of the infrastructure, from the management, from the staff who are competent enough to handle any glitches that the teachers may face during the online sessions. So these are, I would say, it may look like I'm talking about problems, but I'm talking about opportunities for those institutions which can set up an infrastructure which definitely will be useful for them in future, with, like I said, the teachers being the center point of the whole thing. Third point that I'm talking about is the teacher training. With the new education policy being announced maybe last week, right, there are a lot of ambitious plans that this government has in terms of let us say, dropping out from school anytime and then joining back anytime, and from there on taking up the credits which are left over. So age as a barrier has been removed for the learner. But then the teacher has to be trained in terms of using certain tools, putting into use certain processes, which I'm sure the teacher will, do as in what they have been doing all along, right? So teacher training is something most of the time what I see and what others also can vouch for is the teacher trains themselves, right? There is no formal training, at least in new situations. Of course, there are different boards, there are different councils which have their own development programs for the teachers, but then in a situation like this is totally different. So the teachers need to be trained either formally or like how it has happened now, the teachers have got themselves trained. The fourth point would be where we are talking of how this could present an opportunity for new teaching learning methods, right? Now, here I am talking about how the processes or the tools which are available to us online, right, can be used for our own advantage, right? So I'll share one small anecdote which I did for my class. Of course, these students are, as you know, we teach in a PG institute, so these students are in the age bracket of 22 to 26 years. So, but still, this was an opportunity that was presented to me, and in one of the courses that I teach, an elective course that I teach, I set up an online crossword which was timed. When I say timed, there was a duration within which they had to solve that crossword puzzle, and each of the words that were going into the crossword grid had a clue. You know how the crossword works, right? And they needed to type that into those small boxes of the crossword grid. And it was really fun and really learning, because they remembered those, I would say, concepts better. And that was an opportunity for me to use that particular tool, which otherwise I wouldn't have thought of using. So when we say opportunity, we are talking of how this can be used, right? The other thing, although it may not be directly related to this, we keep talking about, in fact, the NEP also talks about the gross enrollment ratio, which the government thinks that should be increased to 50%, which means we are talking of students being retained onto the course for a longer time, because there have been a lot of dropouts that we keep hearing about. One of the things that the government has taken as an initiative is, at least at the high school and the primary school level, is providing the students with midday meals, healthy midday meals, which actually is an incentive for the student to come to the school, if not learn all the time, at least come and sit in the class, right? So let us not debate on whether they are learning or not, but they are coming to the school and some learning is happening, right? So one of the opportunities is lost, I would say. Like I said, I'm slightly deviating from what could be an opportunity here, but then the opportunity of retaining the student, and research also says this, on an online course is very, very low. In fact, if we are talking of courses which are completely online, which I'm going to be talking in the next slide, which are completely online, here we are talking of students in terms of having retained or continued with that course hardly like 15% or 20%, right? Okay, so that again is something that we need to look at, as in, what we can do to keep the students engaged. What are the new innovative tools that we can use? So as teachers, we have our hands full if we want to utilize this opportunity to the best that it has presented to us. So let me, in the next slide, let me talk about another way of online education which has taken the world by storm. Most of you may have heard about it. We call this as the MOOC, right? So we talk of massive open online courses, right? And I'm sure all of you would have heard of MOOC platforms such as the Coursera or the edX or Udacity or Canvas, Iversity. I mean, the names are there for you to see, right? So we talk of these MOOC platforms as why massive? Because there are a massive number of enrollments that happen on these different platforms, right? On the left hand side, you see Byju's, which is again a very famous brand that we can recall, right? And also Khan Academy, which is a pioneer in lessons which are given online. So Khan Academy, I am saying a pioneer. It's a US-based company, and most of the lessons were video-based, but now they have slightly changed the pedagogy of online learning teaching. Byju's is nearer home. We know that Byju's has, if not anything else, you will recall Shah Rukh Khan in the ad, if not the child, right? So we're talking of how this learning app actually has transformed the way learning happens by a small kid, maybe a 13 or a 14-year-old. And believe me, it is true. Once you go on to that particular website, you will see that there is a lot of animated lessons that happen, right? So the animation takes care of so many things which probably the student may have to come to the school physically to do those things. Maybe it's an experiment in a lab, or maybe it's a map that somebody has to point out something geographically, that being a lesson or an assignment. So those are all the things that Byju's takes care of, right? Let me slightly shift to the higher education MOOC platform here. The reason why I want to emphasize on this particular thing is because I said the retention percentage, right? Or on the other hand, I would say the dropout rate is as high as 85% on these massive open online courses. But yet, the MOOC claims a success story, basically because if you're talking of at least a lack of people having enrolled to a particular course, right, and 15% are there in the course completing it, you're talking of a 15,000 people having completed. I hope my maths is right. Okay, so we are talking of so many people having completed the course, which actually speaks of a success story in terms of what can be done or what people can do using or being on an online platform such as the MOOC, right? So it gives us the flexibility as a learner, because first of all, it is self-paced. That means I can go into the lesson anytime I want. I can take the assessments anytime I want, right? There's a time period that's given for us to complete. There are no specific lesson times or session times, right? You just need to finish a course in 4 weeks or 6 weeks. So if somebody wants to learn an artificial intelligence course, or somebody wants to learn a Python course, or it may be as simple as somebody learning mother learning a course about nutrition, right? So any of these, right, can be taken on one of these platforms at your own pace and probably get certified also. The other thing about these MOOC platforms are, we just were talking about the the NEP having a policy where the students can accumulate their credits and probably get a certificate, which of course has to be implemented. So something similar is already available on these MOOCs. So on a Coursera platform, I can bundle some 3 to 4 courses together and earn so many credits after having successfully completed those courses. So these number of credits will fetch me a particular certificate from probably a renowned university such as a Stanford or a Harvard, right? So that I would say is an opportunity that all of us should be using in case we are working, because I said there are different categories of learners. So if some of us are working, then we still would want to upskill, which again I'll be talking about a little later. So here we are talking about how these online platforms actually help us to or provide us an opportunity, I should say, to learn more about a particular subject that we are interested in, right? So those were the points that I thought I should be making about the opportunities that present to us as part of these difficult times using the online learning and course management system. Over to you, Dr. Neetu.
Malti, one point over there.
Yeah, please.
The new methods of evaluation.
Oh yeah, I forgot that. I'm sorry.
No problem.
I missed that out. Okay. this was one of the points of debate that we really had as teachers, right? Some of us were divided over the opinion that, because I said I used crossword as a, crossword puzzle as a mechanism to evaluate the students, right? Which was actually a fun method. But when we say new methods, unfortunately, most of us would want the evaluation to be done with the same rigor that we follow when we do it in the classroom method. So I think when we are talking of new methods, I should say we should be a little lenient is not the word. Let me say we should go a little easy on the assessment, because online is not everybody's forte, right? I mean, not all students' forte. So some students may shine in the classroom, some students may shine online. So obviously, this is not a benchmark for somebody to achieve something through the normally transplanted evaluation methods online. So when we talk of new evaluation methods, it's a little debatable, at least for me personally, because I feel we should go a little slow and a little lenient, right? But not diluting any of the learning, teaching and assessment that we are talking of. Thank you, Neetu, for pointing that out. I missed that point out. Okay. So now I'll hand it over to Neetu. She'll continue with the rest of the slide. And of course, I come in back again at the end.
Okay, Malti ji, thank you so much.
Yes.
This far, Malti has spoken about the opportunities, the last point being the new methods of evaluation. I will come back to this in a while as well when we talk of challenges. So let's now go on to challenges. So when we look at the challenges that this situation has posed, the very first one that I'd like to address is that of the digital divide. When we're talking of the digital divide, all of us are aware that across the world, there are students who do not have access to a mobile phone, leave alone a laptop or an internet connection. All of this might be a luxury that most of them cannot afford. And why am I talking only about the students? This is so even for teachers. There might be a lot of teachers who may not have laptops, who may not have access to technology. So we have a great digital divide here, where we have the haves and the have-nots. We have a HP coming up with a Chromebook, which is specially designed for learning at home. And then we have people who do not even have access to a computer. So we have the digital divide, and this is not going to make it possible for us to use online learning to reach out to everybody. If you're talking of including everybody, if you're talking of democratizing education for all, the digital divide certainly will not allow us to do that. To add to that is the social barrier. We may have a lot of situations where there are children at home. Now, since they are at home, they are expected, at least let's say the girls are expected to help in the kitchen, the boys are expected to help their father with whatever's happening. So there may be a chance where when we are trying to move to online education and we're having classes online, students may not be able to join in. So how do you surmount this kind of a challenge? Our thoughts are that when you're looking at the digital divide, we need to do a lot in terms of looking at how to make technology accessible to every single student worldwide. There are lots of efforts that are being made in terms of internet connectivity, in terms of using different channels like, say, the radio or the TV to reach out to students. For instance, when the pandemic began in China, they used TV very effectively to reach almost 180 million students across China. In places like Syria and Kenya, which are having so much of conflict, they have successfully made use of radio to reach out to students. They also used the postal system to mail out material to these students, which they can read at their convenience. So here we are talking of the digital divide as not allowing students to have access to technology, to the internet, to laptops, etc., We're also talking of the fact that when we're talking of online education, most of the time we are talking of a synchronous mode of learning where the teacher and the student are in front of each other at the same time, and it's a live class. Now, when we're talking of the digital divide and social barriers, this may not be possible, for which we should bring in asynchronous learning as well, wherein we record the sessions and make it available to students at a later point of time whenever they're free and when they have access to technology, to the internet, to a laptop, they should be able to use it. Now let me move on to the third point, which is a lack of structure at home. Now we're talking of children joining into the classes from their home. Now at home, we don't have the same structure as in a classroom. As you can see on this slide, many a time at home, there is so much clutter, there are so many people, and there may be so little space. So I really don't have a sense of a structure which is conducive to learning. So like I said, there may be a lot of people around me, there may be a lot of noise. So how exactly do I have an environment in which to learn? We have a great challenge there, for which we need to work with parents to see how exactly they can create a structure at home which is as close to a classroom setting as possible, where they can sit down and listen to the lesson or concentrate on their work without any external disturbance. So that's a lack of structure. Then comes the problem of recreating classroom-like interaction. Does anybody else have the mic on? There seems to be an echo here. Kindly put yourself in mute. Okay, so I was talking at the point of the challenge of recreating a classroom-like interaction. So we are talking of a classroom that provides an environment in which we have a structure. We have a teacher, which I was referring to in this earlier point as well. We have a teacher, we have the appropriate furniture, we have a board, we have the computer, etc., which is missing. Now, when the child is at home, there are a host of other things also, like how do I interact with my peers? How do I interact with the teacher? A host of other points which come into play, because remember, learning is not something that happens only in the classroom. It goes beyond the classroom as well. So even after the class, there are students in the classroom interacting with their peers, interacting with the teacher, and getting to understand the lesson that they have just learned. So here, this is a big challenge for us, and we need to try and find various ways in which we should try and create a classroom-like environment in the virtual world, for which we can create virtual study groups. Students can make use of virtual study groups using GroupMe, using learning management systems, or even Zoom for that matter. And the teacher should, of course, be open to interact with the student and make sure that she or he communicates with the student and gives them specific time in a day or in the week when they can reach out to them, and what more they could reach out to the teacher, so that that learning process is complete. The next challenge is that of lack of knowledge. Now here we're looking at both the teacher and the student who may lack the knowledge of how exactly to use technology. So as we said earlier, we have jumped into this because we didn't have any other choice. But now we need to slowly try and understand what are the ways in which technology can be used to enhance the teaching and learning experience. So here we'll have to try and use various tools that are available. Like we said before, like Professor Malti also mentioned, we have learning management systems, we have things like Blackboard, we have Moodle, we also have various other tools. We have companies like Apple, Google, Microsoft who have invested very heavily in developing the educators' technology stack over the years. So that's how this entire transition to online happened so quickly. When you look at universities, schools, and colleges getting on to online learning, it was only made possible because in the last 4 or 5 years, there's been a lot of effort to develop these tools. So lack of knowledge is another challenge which can be surmounted by experimenting, collaborating with others, and trying to learn what we can from each other, and then helping students as well to understand how to use that tool so that we can make the best of it. The next challenge is that of sustaining interest. Now, as you can see on this slide, which a friend of mine had sent some time back, online classes seem to be anything but interesting. And like I was joking with a friend of mine, the online classes seem to be more for the parent or the grandparent than for the child. Because as you see on this particular slide, the grandma is trying to eagerly note down what's happening, and the kid is really wanting to run away from there. So the situation is that whatever we are trying to put across to the student, there's a huge challenge of sustaining interest, for which what we have understood is we need to make sure that we break down whatever we are trying to put across to the students into bite-sized pieces, not trying to cram a whole lot into their minds in one go. In every session, trying to have small bite-sized knowledge sharing. It could be a concept, it could be whatever it is that you're trying to put across, making sure that it's something which will last for 12 to 15 minutes. You could have videos, whatever you want to use, multimedia, whatever it is, to make it interesting, not just a lecture. Like I said earlier, it should not be you're using Zoom or you're using Microsoft Teams and you just go on speaking, but you should try and use other media to make it interesting, like Professor Malti was saying earlier as well. So you try and sustain interest. So use the concept of micro learning so that you break every learning activity into smaller bits. So use something which you teach for 12 to 15 minutes, use a video pre-recorded or something of interest, and then immediately have an assessment, maybe have a test where you try and assess how much they have understood. And then give it some time to sink in so that you know that you've given them time even after class to interact with you if they still have doubts, to interact with their other classmates via virtual study groups like I mentioned before, so that they are able to understand what you have put across. So it would be important for us to remember that having really long sessions of video where we are speaking all of the while may be quite boring. So we'll have to be innovative in the ways in which we try and sustain interest. The next challenge, which Professor Malti also mentioned earlier, is when we are using an online platform, there's a greater need for discipline. Because remember now, there is less hand-holding. When we're talking of MOOCs, for instance, like Coursera, Malti was mentioning about the dropout rate, which is huge. Now, why does this happen? Because we all very eagerly register for the course, but then we find that after a while we have so many other things to catch up on that we don't have the discipline to carry through the course to completion and say that, hey, I've done this. Now, when we're talking of online education, we have the same problem. Students will need to have a greater sense of discipline because there'll be too many things which will distract them, especially when they are at home. Like I said before, you could have somebody calling you, you might want to check your Facebook status, you might want to respond to messages, you might want to listen to a podcast, all of this at the time when there is a class in progress. Now, while we all feel very happy about multitasking, research has proved to us beyond a doubt that multitasking is not something that can result in great productivity. Now, especially when we are talking of online learning, it would be important to stay focused, to listen to what is happening, and have a disciplined approach to learning. So you will need to put yourself into a routine, make sure you have set aside specific time of the day when you're going to be attending the online class, and after that for continuing that learning, you will need to have a routine much on the lines of what used to happen in the classroom. Then comes the last point that we want to share with you is the need to safeguard children. So now that we have moved learning online, we find that children will spend more time online. So while more screen time is not a good idea and that needs to be limited, and I'm sure all of us are trying to do what we can for that, there's a greater need to monitor what students are doing online. We also need to make sure that we inculcate healthy digital habits so that we know what exactly students or our children are doing. And for this, there's a lot of literature and a lot of apps which are available in order to ensure that we can monitor what children are doing in order to keep them safe. So here, there's a greater role, I believe, for parents to play to help us to address this particular challenge. So to put all these points together and how to surmount it, and I'll move on to the next slide, where we are talking of educational institutions and teachers, like I said before, who need to collaborate and explore the possibilities that exist. So we're talking of management solutions, learning management systems to be precise. We are talking of video conferencing tools. We are talking of a host of other tools that are available, apps which are available to help us to enhance the learning experience. So teachers need to definitely collaborate and explore what tools are available, share with each other what they have done, and try and see what works best for us. Like I said before, to reduce the digital divide, and to ensure that we include all students in the learning process, to enhance the reach, we should try and see who are the students who are not able to join in, and try and use different media to reach out to them, like radio, TV, mail, wherever access to internet is not possible, and use recorded sessions which could be viewed by students later whenever they have the time. Like I said before, use of micro-learning to make sure that we sustain interest. So having short bits of learning and then a quick assessment, a quick test to understand if they have learned or not is very, very important. The next point which I would want to stress upon is that of empathy. Now, we must remember that we are facing a pandemic with the likes of which none of us have seen in our entire lifetime. Even our parents, grandparents have not seen something of the likes of the Corona-19 pandemic. So what is important here is to have empathy for our students. And it is important for educational institutions, the management and parents to have empathy for the teachers. Because remember, this is something we have gotten into, and this is something that needs to evolve over time. So this is not the time, at least we would request you, and we would request everybody who is watching and to pass on this message to everyone else as well, that this is a time where we need greater empathy. We need to be very, very aware of the fact that our students are joining in to a class when things around them may be it may be a very chaotic situation. There may be people at home who are unwell. There may be job loss, there may be a host of other things which we may not be aware of. So for us to insist that they do things in a certain way and not have empathy for them would really not be the answer in this kind of a situation if we are to surmount this challenge and make sure we get through this together. So it's important to have empathy for our students. It's important for parents to have empathy for the teachers, because they're, again, learning and trying to make the best of it here. And on this point, I'd also like to mention what Professor Malti mentioned earlier. When we're talking of the evaluation, we need to look at new ways of evaluating. It should not be a grade book which we are looking at. We should rather look at each of these activities in the micro-learning sessions that I mentioned and try and assess how much they have learned. So rather than increasing the stress on them, which is already there all around with all the depressing news coming in and all of the difficulties people may be facing, we should not add to it by making them feel that, oh, I have failed, I haven't been able to do anything, I couldn't learn anything. So it's important to understand the student, use technology to not only instruct but also interact with the student and understand what difficulties they may be facing, and then try and make sure you address that. The last point for educational institutions and teachers that I've mentioned, which Malti mentioned earlier as well, is the need to innovate, try and come up with new ways of making lesson plans which are interesting, curriculum design which is meeting the requirement of the learners. All of these will become very, very important in time to come. And for parents, like I said before, it's very, very important that you play a larger role in these times, because these are very, very trying times. All of us are in the pandemic together. Students are spending more time with you now than with us, which was what was happening earlier. So parents need to definitely provide a structure, make sure you have a space which is dedicated to learning at home. Encourage learning, be part of that learning so that the child, especially the little ones, feel that, okay, we are able to learn. Because remember, the teacher who used to be there for them always is not there playing that role. So the parent needs to step in, and I believe it's a time for parents to bond better with their children and try and build a better relationship with the teachers as well, so that this entire journey can become easy for us. And as far as students are concerned, like I said before, for all of you who are watching who are students, it's very, very important to have a routine. So what time you wake up to what time you go to bed, have a routine, because these are trying times. And one thing that is giving you a semblance of normalcy is attending these classes, keeping learning going. Never stop learning, as we said earlier. So having a routine is very important. And whenever you feel there's a difficulty, make sure you reach out to your teachers. Make sure you reach out to the people who can help. I'm sure across the world, teachers have this in them that they are there for their students whenever needed. So do reach out to teachers and be disciplined in your approach. If you're going to have too many distractions around you, the learning is definitely not going to help you. You will ultimately feel that, okay, I didn't learn anything, and you just want to give up on what you're doing. So a disciplined approach is very, very important. Even when we talk of MOOCs, which we spoke of earlier, I believe the dropout rate is so high because we don't have a disciplined approach. We feel that, okay, we have so many other things to do, so I don't want to do this anymore. Okay, I'm now going to hand it back to Professor Malti to take us forward and tell us about the way forward, and then we will quickly wrap it up. Malti.
Yes, thank you. So the way forward is, if we can have the yes. So we are looking at how the learners, I'm using the common terminology here, the learners who need not be specifically a student with an institution or a school. We're talking of how the learner can actually use, or I would say exploit, the online education to the best of their ability. That said, let us also understand that if one has to succeed, then we need to have the kind of perseverance that we talked about for them to complete the course and then go on to use that on a platform which is going to help them further, either in their career or further in their studies. So we have various players here. You can see the names such as Upgrade or Vedantu or Educate or iMarticus, right? We also have institutions which actually are scouting for certain companies who can put in place a learning management system or a course management system or a comprehensive system that can take care of the entire administrative and learning, teaching, all these processes which otherwise were done normally on a face-to-face basis. Can it be entirely transplanted onto a online platform? So there are, this I believe has increased over a period of time from last March. In fact, that is March 2020, from the time the pandemic started. But if I can slightly deviate from what is there on the slide, let us understand that all said and done, any of these platforms actually are talking about innovative pedagogical tools, right? They're talking of radically changing the way in which lessons can be delivered. It also means that if we are on these kind of platforms, it gives the learning institutions or teaching institutions a flexibility to design their own curriculum. Not bringing the curriculum under a specific ambit. I'm not saying that there should not be any authority which gives a degree or gives a certificate. What I'm saying is the institution by itself should be responsible enough, given the freedom to design flexible programs. It also means that when we are talking of flexible programs, right, we are talking of how there can be learning objects, right? I'm using a term which is very specific to online learning and teaching. We're talking of learning objects which could be as simple as a document or a lesson that you would want to share in the text form. It could be an animation which you want to show for a particular teaching process. It could be an interactive, animation where you would want the students to participate so that they learn better. Or it could be a multiple choice question paper which could be, helping the student to understand, like Neetu said, the assessment could be given online to quickly check whether the student has learned what has been taught. So of course, there are so many avenues. In fact, sometimes I think that there are too many avenues, too many options, which is why the confusion to choose which is the right one, at least for a student. Of course, given that the students belong to a particular organization, then it is our responsibility to offer them the best possible situation in terms of the learning and teaching and assessment. So I think I would now request Neetu to continue with the anything you would want to add, Dr. Neetu.
No, Maldi, the next point as well. You could talk about what we discussed earlier, the government initiatives.
Yes. So the government, of course, like I said, the private institutions were the ones, or the private schools also were the ones which quickly jumped on or transitioned to online teaching because of the wherewithal in terms of technology and e-learning platforms, right? But the public universities were a little laggard, I should say, in terms of joining the race. But no qualms about that, no complaints about that, because the government has all the infrastructure under its umbrella. So we talk of a Diksha portal, or we talk of a e-Pathshala or a Swayam, right? All these are initiatives of the Indian government, which is highly appreciable. You can visit one of these sites. I'm sure some of you may have already visited these websites, right? The kind of lessons, the kind of material that is available, the kind of animated lessons that are also there in some of these platforms is something that needs to be seen to be believed, right? And you also should be visiting something which is offered for free on Byju's app. I'm sure some of you are already doing that. Or private, these initiatives are on the technology platform, right? How I should say innovative they are in terms of providing those opportunities to the students to learn, right? So maybe when we are talking of these kind of initiatives and students and all the other points that we've previously mentioned, let us not forget that every learner has a learning style, right? Some of us understand it only when we interact with the teacher. Some of us learn it better only when we talk to our classmates. Some of us understand when we work alone. So each of us have a different way of learning. So online really cannot suffice these requirements for those learning styles, but yet in these times I would say this is something that we need to exploit, utilize, and I would say there's a great opportunity for all of us as teachers, to whoever are the teachers here, to utilize this particular situation to the best of our advantage. Neetu ji?
Malti ji, thank you.
Yes,
So like
thank you.
Professor Malti was mentioning, we have a host of initiatives taken by the Government of India to ensure that education is inclusive. Like I was talking of earlier, if you don't have access to internet, can we give the lessons via TV? So the Prime Minister's eVidya platform has 12 DTH channels to serve that very purpose, so that the remotest corners of the country can be reached via this particular channel. So finally, wrapping up, we are talking of the future. 3 points we'd like to touch upon. One, definitely this is a crisis situation, and as they say that a crisis situation is generally an inflection point which calls for a change in the way that we were doing things earlier. So we believe that as we go forward, there will be greater integration of technology. Technology, in fact, has got its moment due to the pandemic. Going forward, we believe we will be looking at a hybrid model where we will look at face-to-face engagement as well as online classes. Even I believe even after we are through the pandemic, we should have this particular model that we should explore for education. Now here, one more aspect that can come into play is since we have so many wonderful courses on MOOC, especially for higher education, we could look at integrating some of these courses into our routine, into the curriculum, and have students to complete these courses and give them the credits that are due to them. The new education policy, in fact, talks of this very aspect that students could complete MOOCs and they could get credits for the same. So in coming time, we may be looking at a hybrid model where we will have a combination of courses that we design, courses which we want them to take online from our side, as well as what is available on MOOCs. And we believe that this whole pandemic and the crisis situation should result in a situation where we have education without borders. We've recently been hearing about the best of our institutes being able to set up shop in foreign countries and vice versa. So we are talking about education which should not have any borders. Wherever I may be, I should have access to the best in education, because education is something that can provide a great life to every single person, no matter what background they come from. To end, I'd like to mention that this crisis has put the spotlight on teachers, and it's certainly time that teachers get their due, because most of the situations we find that people kind of look down on teachers, though it's considered a very noble profession. We find that teachers really do not get the attention due to them. Even during the pandemic, we're seeing many teachers losing their jobs, many teachers not being paid, which is very, very sad. Because if you look at this whole pandemic, how it's played out, teachers have really risen to the occasion, like Malti mentioned before, trying to do their level best. Even for them, this is a big challenge, but they took it on and said, okay, we have to keep learning going for our students, and let's do what we can. So it's about time teachers get their due in terms of better recognition, better salaries, because it's very, very highly inadequate if you look, especially in the primary level, which is very, very important. And I hope the pandemic gives that attention to this matter. To wrap up very quickly, we say that when we have so many things happening around us which we can't control, we have to challenge ourselves to control the way we respond to the situation. That's where our power is. And like we say, no storm in nature lasts forever. This too shall pass. And I'm sure we will emerge on the other side of the pandemic much stronger than what we went in. And we will have a lot of lessons that we will share with each other and emerge much stronger, like I said before. Thank you.
Thank you.
So we open for any questions you may have. Deepashri, over to you.
Yeah. So I'll, you can just leave your questions on the comment box. I'll take up a few that are already there, and either one of you, Professor Malti or Dr. Neetu, can go ahead and answer them. Sure. So this is a question from Mr. Satish. Can you comment on the opportunities like introducing more choices in courses, participation of experts across the globe, anytime learning, more women enrollment, and add-on courses connected to industries?
So, Neetu, would you like to take that up, or shall I start answering them?
Go ahead, Maldi.
Okay, so sir, I mean, anyway, he has asked the question, but I'm sure the response that I'll have is for everybody to listen to, hear me out. Of course, I'll start with. I've already spoken about opportunity in terms of having innovation in terms of the design of the course. Also, if we can add new courses which are not there or not there previously as part of the curriculum. One of the things that we, sadly, there's a World Bank report that was released very recently that comprises data that was collected from March 2020 to June 2020 regarding the education or the online education that has been happening. So they find that although there are certain success stories, in quotes I'll say success stories, right? These success stories or the best practices that these educational institutions have adapted or adopted are very poorly documented. Right? So moving up or scaling up in terms of technology, you do not find as a teacher, if you want to replicate them, you don't find those best practices documented. So somewhere as teachers, we lack that ability in terms of recording historically what has happened. Maybe the history in this particular case may be 6 months old, but then if we have adopted to a new method of teaching, then we better record it in a way possible so that it can be replicated by others also. So yes, choices in courses, or you're talking of experts, which we do in our institute, where we invite experts world over in either in the finance or in IT or HR and marketing operations, and we ask them to give their views which aligns with what we are teaching here. So I hope that partially answers the question what you had, sir.
Yeah, excellent, madam. I think you did very well, actually. My point was especially the choice, actually. If you see the new education policy, you can take physics, you can take music, and you can take history, actually.
Yes, yes.
Similarly, in management education, I think every industry also agrees. We want our graduates to have exposure in various other fields also.
Yes, yes.
Similarly, I also felt like when we said add-on courses kind of a thing, like students are given choices, actually. Like in the non-engineering courses, CBCS, we call it as choice-based education, more choices in management. Like we have only HR, finance, marketing, or information systems.
Sir, I think I'll interrupt you there. I'm sure Neetu will also add on to this. As part of our, PGDM that we have, the choice of courses. I mentioned those because those are the things which are easily, understood and relevant. But as part of our institution and PGDM program, we have a few soft courses because Professor Neetu, Dr. Neetu herself is handling a communication course, which is just not managerial communication. I mean, she's the right person to talk more about it. But before that, let me also add that we have a course which encourages students to take up a socially relevant project, where the student is attached to a NGO or a government department which does non-profit kind of work, and the students get to learn what these organizations do. We also have something called as a knowledge seminar, which is the term that we use to title this course, but the course is all about learning, reading books, giving reviews of the book, the student groups do this. They also relate it to the contemporary concepts, which maybe the book is a classic, like the Adam Smith book. So they relate it to the contemporary thing, and that I would say is another course which I'll say is something other than the routine HR, finance, marketing, IT.
That's great. That's great, madam. One
Right.
more addition. This is regarding your MOOC.
Yeah.
Actually,
Yeah.
you said was actually, but
Yeah.
my experience also, because I have tried various MOOC courses for self as for the students also.
Okay.
Wherever I found, especially when it is offered to the students, they
Right.
need hand holding. Actually, there are few students who will really take on their own actually entire
Okay.
courses, learn and all that. Somewhere the teacher support is required actually on the MOOC. You cannot just say that, okay, join this course, you do it and then register itself and take the certificate. Somehow I felt the teacher support, if it's given,
Definitely.
probably at the bottom of the pyramid, probably they will pick up faster, and then I want to know your comment.
I'm thinking that you're talking of the UG students. I offered or as part of the evaluation for a course that I handle here, I had insisted that 10% of the weightage of the evaluation will be given to them only if you complete a MOOC course, and which was of course related to the course. Let me name the course. It was database management systems, and I had insisted that they complete that course, which they did in fact, and I'm happy to say that I documented the entire case as a case study, and I presented the paper in a conference. So I think it on, in fact, I did no hand holding except for telling them what they will find where and what they need to submit for having completed the course, right? And I chose the course from a particular MOOC platform, which was really short in terms of the number of weeks, so that it could synchronize with the conclusion of my course, and that will add on to the evaluation. I hope I have answered that.
No, that was okay, ma'am. Basically, to monitor actually,
Okay.
little proactive by the teachers to monitor whether they are learning, how many MOOC courses they are doing. That will really help us only in the mainstream actually.
Correct, sir. I agree, sir. Totally. Yes.
That was the only point which I wanted. But some students are really good, madam. You can just tell them they talk off. I mean, there are students, they are different students. I mean,
that's
right. They are the ones who could do that kind of. So I think that can be done. Probably that will be
noted,
helpful.
sir. Noted. Yes, noted that point, sir.
True, Commander Satish, adding on to what Professor Malti mentioned, I totally agree with you, because even as you mentioned, many of us have registered for Coursera courses but have dropped out very quickly. So if you think that individuals like us can do that, students will definitely do it much more. So like you said, yes, hand-holding would help. And also, like Professor Malti mentioned, telling them that this is to be done as part of a course. So when I put an evaluation component in, they will definitely want to do it. And then, of course, a little bit of guidance on our side to check on what they're doing will help.
So I suppose that partially also answers the question from Rachana, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so keeping that, giving a weightage to that particular MOOC course probably is like, I shouldn't be saying this, probably dangling a carrot in front of the donkey, but then yes, that will get done.
You're calling the student a donkey, Malti?
That's why I said, pardon the language, but then yes, that was a phrase.
Okay.
Yes.
Madam, one point to both the panelists.
Yeah.
Basically, I haven't. Basically, we need to come across standardization actually, and online protocol actually. If what needs to be done, there are some guidelines which is given by UGC, ACT, and other universities. Probably there is some standardization across the institutes actually. Actually, what needs to be done. Actually, what should be done on the online platform. I think could be a way forward actually.
Yes.
I want to know your comments actually. So otherwise, each one of us keep doing whatever I want and what you want and all that. Probably with the available technology and other thing, if there is a standardization, I just want to know your thoughts.
Neetu?
Commander Satish, my immediate reaction to that question would be, I totally agree there needs to be standardization for almost everything that we do that would be helpful. But considering that we are in a pandemic situation, it will take time for things to evolve. So maybe another 6 months down the line, when we speak again, we would be able to say that, okay, we've understood this better, and therefore we can share what has worked with us for us, and we try and bring in standards or bring in standardization in place. But at present, maybe it will be very difficult.
No, not present, but in future only as a way forward.
Definitely, we should be having it in place.
Yes.
Dr.
Srinivasan, I think you wanted to go ahead. You can go ahead now. You had a question, I believe.
All right. Thank you very much for giving this opportunity. During the presentation, yes, the presentation was very good, and you have given a lot of input on whatever needs to be done during this pandemic situation. Yes, it was fantastic. But what I noticed is we always felt this is a crisis situation, considering the fact that the pandemic is taking us our time away from the students, and we are in a situation, it's a difficult times. That's what we believe in. But actually, the belief should be the other way around. This is the opportunity period, not the crisis period. And this is not the difficult time, this is the best time.
Okay, that's a positive way of looking at things.
So in fact, if you remember, that's what we began with, saying that this is a crisis and it presents us with an opportunity, and we should see how best to use it.
Correct. So we should take off that crisis word from the presentations moving forward.
It's not a crisis. It's an opportunity situation. Yes.
It's an opportunity situation, and the best time to start something new.
Correct.
Yes.
Right.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
I had a question.
Yes.
I've heard a lot from people around here at workplace where their kids, so the government schools have made it not compulsory for the student to sit through a class. If only you want to, you can sit through, otherwise you don't have to. So I just wanted to understand, already there's a situation where education there itself, sending kids to school is such a big no-no. And with all the barriers that surpassed, and children are going to school, now they've made it an option whether you want to sit through it or don't want to sit through it. I just wanted to understand, like, where are we moving forward? I feel like we've gone back a million years where we started saying that, okay, we need to get back to school and education. So I just wanted to understand the situation a little better.
Okay, that was Deepashri, right?
Yes.
Okay, Deepashri, I'm not very sure of this, what you mentioned, this option. But I'm trying to look at it from this point of view, that we cannot force a kid to sit in class. Just like even in school, if a child comes in, if he or she does not want to sit, I'm sure we can't do much, because they're not going to be listening to what's going on. So similarly, in an online class, you may not be able to force somebody to join. But I'm not sure if they're saying that learning itself can be put off for later. Maybe they are trying to say that if not the online session, you could join in for the offline sessions, or rather look at the material that's been posted. Rather watch the video and try and make sense of it when you find time. I'm not sure if we are saying that, okay, it's an option, you don't want to attend, you don't have to attend. But it may be on this side where we are saying, okay, attend at your convenience.
Okay.
This is what I'd like to say.
Okay. I had another question. So we have a lot of these online platforms, learning platforms, like you spoke about a lot of them. So some of them are free, like Khan Academy, I think, is free. Yes. And then the rest of it, they slashed down prices during the lockdown. So they were selling these packages at, say, $399 and lifetime access to these courses. Do you think it's a threat to institutions like yours that people would want to, like parents would want children to just have these courses? And what do you think?
Can I answer that, Neetu?
Yeah, go ahead.
It's I know the analogy that I'm going to be taking up may not be really the right one, but still, like they say, okay, there's a lot of TV channels, so radio nobody will hear. Okay, there's a lot of streaming platforms like Netflix and Amazon Prime or so many others, so nobody will take a look at the TV programs. What I believe is each of these have their own clientele, they have their own customers, in the sense the learners. So some of them, like Satish sir was mentioning, the learning styles differ. So those of them who are comfortable online, and those of you who do not have time to spend a year or two on a formal education, I'm talking of a higher education, may really opt for an online kind of course. On the other hand, who would want to interact with people face to face, they would still pay fees and come to campuses to learn. So there are so many other institutions which have actually experimented and have been successful, where they have flipped classrooms or blended learning, where they're saying, okay, you can come here for 4 to 5 weeks, go back to your workplace, understand, assimilate, prepare project reports, assignments, come back again at the end of the course, and then we'll wind up with an assessment and hand you a degree. I mean, IIM Calcutta does that, and I just took the name of IIMC. We also do that. In fact, we have a blended learning program, a certificate program. So, all kinds of courses have all kinds of people interested. So, I don't think we are working in the same space. So, not a threat, I would say.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any more questions from anyone?
Right. So thank you, I suppose.
Hello, Neetu. There is one question from me.
Yes.
How
Shilpa.
are children who are differently abled managing with this kind of situation?
Okay. In fact, I remember checking on some sources online, especially Google is providing a lot of tools for children who are differently abled. So when they are moving on to an online platform, there are tools which can be used by the caregiver or the parents, as well as teachers, to help children with who are differently abled, as I mentioned. I remember in particular checking a particular site that Google has put up called Teach from Anywhere, where they have given a specific set of tools which can be used. Though I wouldn't be the right person to tell you more on this because I haven't done that kind of teaching. But I remember having looked at that link and said that, okay, I should read this up sometime. So there are a lot of tools online, and you could check this out, Teach from Anywhere, where they've actually given links and resources for teaching students who are differently abled.
Okay, thank you, Neetu.
So, yeah.
Madam,
one last question if I can take.
Basically, I'll just share the things. Basically, what does the students want, madam? Students' perspective is one of the key things which we need to know that. While we are now going towards the online, what does the student want? One of the minister was commenting what students want is the best campus life and fun, actually, apart from whatever we want to say that. And we also agree that. So how are we going to integrate this kind of an experience for the students, actually, and yet going for online is the real challenge I feel is ahead, actually. Most of my students, they always want to come back to campus, actually.
Yeah, that's true, sir. They want to come back to campus. That's why we were suggesting the blended learning is what
They want to come back. I am sure in SDM also, you have an excellent want to come and enjoy the sports, music, fun, cricket, whatever, quiz, everything. So I think that's the how do we integrate them is that's the challenge, actually.
Yes.
Another last thing is the skill development, madam. Skill development is what is needed, and probably I don't know how online education will really address the skill development of the student or skill enhancement. Probably these are the few challenges we need to address in future.
Yeah,
you.
everything cannot be done online. That's right,
Yeah.
sir. Maybe we need to devise new pedagogical methods for the online this thing. Right. So,
Can I take this question, please?
Go ahead.
Yes, sir.
Go ahead. All right. See, we always felt online is going to be the norm in the near future, but I felt it's going to be a must moving forward. And while it's going to be a must moving forward, we encourage students to come online for the to learn the subjects whatever we teach. But ultimately, we end up giving the recorded teaching module or whatever it is. But that actually discourages the students to be online because they anyway know that they're getting the recorded message. So, what do you think is the solution next?
sir, I'll go to a broader aspect here. Culturally, we are not, people who learn from podcasts. If you look at American universities, most of the students have podcast, and class presence is not part of the evaluation or assessment. So here we insist on attendance. So culturally, we are slightly different. Obviously, we cannot have a podcast which can replace the teacher. I don't think any university in India has done so far. I mean, some of you may have to throw light on that. So if you could, that's what I think. That's my, observation in whatever little knowledge that I have.
Right. Anyways, we were moving forward. Probably we'll be able to understand much more on these things coming
Yes,
days.
yes.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. It was a wonderful presentation, both
you,
of you,
sir.
Alfie and
Thank you.
Steve.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Yeah.
Rupa, shall we wind up?
Yes, if there are no more questions to come out, then we can end the session.
I think
And
Aditya had one question, if I'm not mistaken. He was saying, what is the role of the school and the teachers if online classes are there? And is Aditya still there? Okay, fine.
It's
Yes.
actually
Yes.
Aditya's mother here.
Oh, okay. I'm so sorry. I'm so
No,
sorry.
actually, my son classes goes on in the Microsoft team, so it has been in his name. He is in the 3rd standard C section.
Oh my God. Okay.
Okay.
So this is another example what we will have because there'll be Aditya is online, the mother is online. Yeah.
No, but that's actually good because if you recollect one of the points I mentioned, it's going to be the parent and the child trying to learn, and it's going to be the parent learning all over again so that they can then teach the child.
No, actually, he got used to it because I was on the session for almost 3-4 months. So
Okay.
adapting it became more easy for him. He sits with the classes for 1 hour.
Okay.
But my question was here, the question was like, if we go for the online classes, if the academics are more, the institutions, what you have mentioned about Khan or B. Joyce, if they are more focused on the study part or the subject or the academic part of the children, then what will happen to the role of the teacher there? That the importance of the teacher goes down because the parents quite obviously will opt for those who are more expertise in the field, who has done engineering and other in other field, but they are very comfortable teaching the children. But the teacher would have put more effort in those number of years. So my question was that.
Madam, I'll, Neetu, can I answer
Yeah,
that?
go ahead, Madhi.
Yeah. So what I think is, I know for sure, not think, right? When you opt for online academics, those are just supplements for the classes that actually are done by the school, because the school comes under a board, and the board is the one which is going to be having the credibility of awarding a certificate in terms of the marks card or whatever, because in India still we talk of the scorecard and all that. So in that sense, the teachers have a big role to play, because they are the ones who are doing those classes. They are the ones who are going to give the assessments. The Byju's or the Khan Academy are supplements for students who would want to learn something additional. And this generally, in my understanding, although K1 to K12 is there in Byju's and also in Diksha, in fact, I would say these are just supplements or add-ons to those student learning. That's what my take is. So teachers do have a job to set the question paper, to do the assessment, to award the marks, to grade the student. All these would be the task of the teacher.
Yes, very true, very true.
Yeah.
Thank you, madam.
Thank you, madam. Aditya's mother, may I know your name?
Sudha here. Sudha
Sudha.
from my.
Yes. Thank you, madam. Thank you, Sudha.
Thank you, Sudha.
Thank you
Yeah.
so much. Thank you.
Yeah.
Good evening, madam. Your presentation was excellent, both of you.
Thank you,
I
sir.
have a comment. I am Father
Yes.
Biju from Christ College.
Please, sir.
Now the university is not giving the freedom to the institutions to this kind of courses is offering, whatever you commented,
Yes.
maybe in the digital platforms.
Yeah.
If we are insisting to the students, students are telling university is not prescribing for our curriculum. That is the biggest challenge. The institutions is trying to update their knowledge, maybe
Right.
for the skill development and other things. What
Right.
is your comment? Because in the
Sir,
PG
I-
programs, you maybe. Yes.
I'll just take cue from Satish sir. He said there needs to be certain standards to be established, certain frameworks where institutions need to collaborate so that universities can, can be flexible enough to offer, I would say, design courses, right? So with the NEP, I suppose it may be possible, if not in near future, maybe in some time, where we can, bring all these together to offer a comprehensive, a designer course to the students. As of now, what you say is correct, sir. The universities have a hold on everything in terms of what the course will have.
Yeah. Even they are not updating the syllabus. That is the biggest challenge.
Yes, I know, sir.
Madam, can I just add to Father
Please,
Biju?
sir. I was requesting you to. I was wanting you to add your.
Madam, what happens is, Father Biju, you are aware, as per the CBCS, you have that LTP ratios, lecture,
Yeah.
tutorials, and practicals. When you design the program, of course, you are not free as such now. As autonomous and deemed universities, they are free. Under tutorial component, if you add more credits, probably this online education can come in the tutorial way, actually, helping the students to learn better. Maybe the lecture method or the direct teaching method will continue. Suppose you have a 4-credit course, 2 for lecture and 2 for tutorial. If you keep probably 40% of online education, you could continue. Probably, I don't know, maybe the more standardization has to come in. The universities will have to come out, and I hope the UGC and AICT combined will come out with the better solution way forward. Yes, madam.
Yes,
I don't know
yes.
what is your opinion? Yeah.
No, it's true,
We
sir.
can
I think.
hope for the best.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right, sir. But all said and done, the university has a structure. Otherwise, I would say if we give a total autonomy, like the Spider-Man movie says, with great power comes great responsibility. So we all should be, responsible enough to design a course which actually will work for the best of the student.
That's why, madam, online protocol is very important. Like the hygiene protocols have already been devised.
Correct,
Online
correct.
protocols have to be there so that parents, students, teachers, and all the other stakeholders also have a common platform to operate.
Yes,
That's
sir.
what-
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, madam. Excellent.
Thank you.
Excellent.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. It was excellent session. Congratulations.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
And I was telling madam, I was sending a message. We must go across to the government colleges, madam. That's
Yes.
what I.
Right.
As a
True, sir.
AI Rupa Rao actually, like we will.
Oh,
go
definitely,
at
sir.
Datta also we will tell them, because somewhere on the line we need to support the government colleges. I don't think they have any the opportunity to come out this kind of platforms Probably we need to understand their way of issues and challenges. How can we address them? Probably one such bloody
Definitely,
event
sir.
can work for them actually.
Yes.
Definitely,
Yes,
sir. We'll work towards that.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you, Dr. Neetu. Thank you, Professor Malti.
Thank
And
you.
then
My
Dr.
pleasure.
Srinivasan, Mr. Satish, and then Father Biju. Thank you very much for joining us today. And then it was really a very, very informative session. So we could definitely, even though I don't have that means, not kids anymore. My children are adults, and it was really very informative to know how the education system is working now. So, thank you so much. Thank you all
ma'am.
for
Thank you so
joining us. Yeah, thank you, Deepashri, and thanks to Augustine. Augustine, without
Yes.
Augustine, we are not here. So, Augustine and then Kiran. Thank you all.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you,
Thank
madam,
you.
and
Thank
a
you.
good evening.
Thank you, Rupal.
Thank you.